Over the years, I've sat down with families who have inherited IRAs, and almost every time, the first thing that they say is, I don't want to mess this up. I don't know what to do with it. I'm not sure how this thing works. And the truth is, this isn't just an account. It's a decision that can impact your taxes, your retirement, your family for years to come. So what's important about these inherited IRAs or beneficiary IRAs? In this video, I'm going to walk you through them, what to expect, how to think about them, so that you have a plan and a strategy. Hi, I'm Jonathan Bednar, certified financial planner and co-owner of Paradigm Wealth Partners. So you just inherited an IRA and your first thought probably isn't, great, let me read the IRS regulations. It's more like, what am I supposed to do with this? Do I have to leave it alone? Do I take money out? Am I about to accidentally create a huge tax bill? And so I recently actually sat down with someone in this exact situation. They had inherited money from their aunt, and so this wasn't a parent, obviously. They were really not sure how first of all, they didn't even know they were a beneficiary. It just kind of found out once we reached out to let them know that they were a beneficiary on the account. So it came as a surprise. They were not expecting this. They didn't know how to plan for this. And so the money hadn't been touched in quite a while, except for the person when they were living taking the RMDs. And so when the new client learned about them, or learned that they were the beneficiary, they just didn't understand the rules or what to do. So really what I would say is they were appreciative of the inheritance. They were afraid of doing the wrong thing, not knowing how inherited IRAs work. So with an inherited IRA, doing nothing can be one of the biggest mistakes that you can make. Before we get into the rule, let's zoom out for a second. An inherited IRA is not just an investment account. It's really one of two things. It can either be a tax problem waiting to happen or a tax planning opportunity. And the difference comes down to how you handle it, because the rules have changed over the last several years. You used to, in a prior lifetime, you used to be able to allow, the IRS used to allow you to stretch the distributions over your lifetime. So as with IRAs, you have to take a required minimum distribution once you reach a certain time. That also was a requirement for beneficiary IRAs who inherited money from someone who was not a spouse. Spousal rules have a little bit different rule, but for non-spousal rules, you had to continue taking those RMDs. But again, like I said, prior to 2020, you were able to stretch those over your lifetime. So you really minimized your tax liability. Several years ago, what happened was the rules changed around the Secure Act. And so now you have a time frame where you must deplete the assets within a 10-year window. And so if you're not prepared for this, then you may end up having a big tax bill. Again, if we do this right, you can create a tax planning opportunity instead of a great big tax bill. People either do one of two things. They either take too much out too fast and pay more in taxes than is necessary, driving their tax liability and their tax brackets up, or they wait too long and get forced into a really large tax distribution that causes a big tax liability at the end of the 10th year, at the end of that 10-year window. So the goal isn't just to follow the rules, it's to use them strategically. How do we use these to enhance your life and your own retirement plan? These are huge benefits and huge gifts to you. So we just want to make sure we use them strategically. So let's break this down simply. If you inherit an IRA from someone who's not your spouse, you have typically inherited what's called a non-spouse beneficiary, which means you have this 10-year window to fully empty that account. Again, spouses can take this out over their lifetime. Non-spouses, you have to empty it over that 10-year period. So that's the big headline rule, I would say. Here's where things may get confusing and where I often see mistakes happen. There's really two layers to this. The first one is the 10-year rule, which we've discussed. The second is if RMDs were already started, if that person was RMD age, you have to continue taking RMDs out. And so a lot of times people don't understand that if they're not sure the rules on these required minimum distributions. If that person had already started their required minimum distributions, then yes, you need to withdraw those and continue taking those on every year. If not, the IRS is a little bit more flexible, meaning you might get to wait a little bit and not have to take some out each year. You still, however, have to have the IRA depleted by the end of the 10th year. And when I say depleted, that sounds so negative. Fully distributed out of that account. So you don't necessarily have to spend the money, but it's got to come out of that account and be allocated to another investment account. So this is where a lot of people get tripped up because many assume I'll just leave it alone and deal with it later. And with normal compounding of money, that's a fantastic idea. Again, the rules are different with these beneficiary IRAs. It's important that you know and you understand how the tax implications work when you've inherited one yourself. So what should you actually do with an inherited IRA? Here's how we think about this with clients. Number one, we want to understand the tax impact. If this is a traditional IRA, every dollar you take out is taxable income at your ordinary income level, your ordinary income bracket. So it's very important you understand this. When we take this money out at the lowest possible tax rate is one strategy that you could employ. The other thing that we want to think about is avoid waiting till the end of the 10th year. One of the biggest mistakes I see is people waiting. They just take the minimum, assuming RMDs have started, and then they're forced to take out a big lump sum at the end of the 10th year. Instead, it often makes more sense to spread those withdrawals out over time. And that could look like filling up your lower tax brackets each year, taking more in years where your income was lower. Maybe you're going to take an even distribution every year for the 10 years. There's a lot of ways to think about this, but it's important that you coordinate this with your overall plan. It's not just about the IRA. It's about your income today, your retirement timeline, your Social Security decisions, and your other investments. How do we manage and merge all these strategies together so that you have a real concrete plan on paper, on purpose? The inherited IRA should fit into that financial plan. At the end of the day, an inherited IRA is a gift, but it's a gift with rules. And if you ignore these rules or just hope it works out, you can unintentionally give a big portion of it back in taxes. If you handle it well, you can reduce tax liability, create flexibility, and use it to strengthen your future. If you've inherited an IRA or think you might in the future, this is one of the areas where a little planning goes a long way. And if you want help thinking through your specific situation, that's exactly what I do and my team does at Paradigm Wealth Partners. You can schedule some time to talk with me in the link in the description. Be confident in your retirement. Have a wonderful day.